The evening was dark, and rain pounded against the windows as if demanding to be let in. The house stood in silence, broken only by the steady ticking of the clock, each second stretching into what felt like an eternity. Emily stood in the dimly lit kitchen, gazing out the window. But the reflection staring back at her wasn't her own pale face, it was emptiness. In her trembling hands, she clutched a crumpled piece of paper, its message simple yet devastating. "I'm leaving. I'm sorry." 3 words. Just 3. But they tore her apart. A sound echoed behind her, a step. She turned, her breath catching in her throat. Jake stood in the doorway. Her husband. The man who, just yesterday, had sworn to love her forever. Now, he looked at her with cold, unfamiliar eyes, as if she were nothing more than a stranger. "Jake," she whispered, her voice unsteady. "Don't," he interrupted, his tone sharp. "It's over. Look at yourself in the mirror." His words cut deeper than any blade. "I've been with someone else for a long time." Emily froze, her heart pounding so loudly she feared he might hear it. "Someone else?" she whispered, barely able to force the words out. "Yes," he said without hesitation. "And she's not like you." Her head dropped, silent tears mingling with the raindrops trailing down the glass. "You'll regret this," she murmured. Jake didn't even pause. He turned toward the door, his voice hollow. "I don't think so." The door slammed shut. 3 months passed. Emily tried to move forward, piecing together the remnants of her life. She found solace in a small bookshop, where the scent of old pages became her quiet refuge. But at night, when everything was still, she could still hear his voice. "Look at yourself in the mirror." One evening, on her way home, she noticed a man standing beneath a streetlight. His face was obscured by shadows. As she passed, he whispered her name. "Emily." She spun around, but he was gone. The next day, a package arrived at the bookshop. No return address. Inside was an antique mirror, its frame intricately carved as if it belonged in another time. "What is this?" she murmured, tracing a finger along the cold glass. Something was strange about the reflection. Her own eyes seemed darker, deeper, almost alive. A chill crawled down her spine, and she turned away. That evening, she saw him again. The man from the streetlight. This time, he was closer. "You must look," he said, his voice an eerie echo. "Who are you?" she demanded. But he was gone. The mirror began to change. Shadows flickered within its depths. At times, faces appeared, ghostly, watching. And then, one night, she saw him. Jake. His reflection stood behind hers, his face twisted in fear. "Jake," she whispered, reaching toward the glass. He vanished. The next morning, she set out to find the mysterious man. Her search led her to the outskirts of town, to a worn, forgotten house. A sign on the door read, "Antoine, Mirror Restorer." The door creaked open. "I knew you'd come," the man said. His voice was calm, but his eyes held unease. "What's happening? Why are you following me?" "It's not me, Emily," he said gravely. "It's the mirror. It's different." "Different how?" "It doesn't just reflect. It shows what was, what could be, or what will be." A chill ran through her. "I saw Jake," she whispered. Antoine nodded. "He's in danger. And so are you." Emily rushed home, her pulse hammering. The mirror awaited her. She stared into it, but the face looking back wasn't quite hers. It was her, but happier, smiling, whole. "Who are you?" she breathed. "I am who you could be if it weren't for him," the reflection whispered. Emily's blood ran cold. "Jake took everything from you, but you can take it back." "How?" "Break the mirror." Her hand trembled as she reached for the hammer on the shelf. She hesitated, fingers curling around the handle. Then the doorbell rang. She turned sharply. It was Jake. "Emily," he began, his voice shaking. "I need to talk to you." Her grip on the hammer tightened. "About what?" she asked, her voice colder than she intended. I was wrong," he admitted, swallowing hard. "She's not who I thought she was." Emily studied his face. There was sincerity there. And fear. "You'll regret this," she said, echoing the words from that night. "I already do." She turned back to the mirror, staring at the version of herself trapped within the glass. The hammer felt heavy in her grasp. "It's a choice," she whispered. Jake stepped closer. "What is?" Her grip loosened. With a deep breath, she set the hammer down. "I don't want to live in the past," she said, staring at her own reflection. "I want to live in the future." Jake exhaled, relief washing over him. "I know I don't deserve your forgiveness," he said, "but I want to try." She turned to him, searching his face. There, in his eyes, she saw the same pain she carried in her own heart. "We've both made mistakes," she said softly. "But maybe this is a chance to start over." Slowly, she reached for his hand. He took it. The mirror remained intact. But deep within its reflection, something moved, just for a second. A shadow, a smile, or a warning. 6 months passed. Emily and Jake were rebuilding, learning to trust again. The past was behind them, or so they told themselves. But sometimes, when Emily walked past the mirror, she caught a glimpse of something off. A flicker of darkness. A shape shifting. A reminder that one choice had changed everything. Or perhaps this was just the beginning. The mirror never spoke, but its reflection said more than words ever could. And somewhere, hidden in the darkness, someone was smiling.